Today on Matt Walsh Show, the victory of a Muslim socialist in the Democratic primary in New York has sparked a much-needed conversation about the dangers of mass migration, not just illegal migration, which it turns out isn't the only problem or even the main problem. Also, disgraced former Congressman Jamaal Bowman goes on CNN and pulls a Jussie Smollett. And some kids in Atlanta face hate crime charges after destroying a pride flag. Yes, burning an American flag is free speech, but destroying a pride flag is a hate crime, apparently. We'll talk about all that and more today on the Matt Walsh Show. Big thanks to Bearskin for sponsoring today's show. They sent me their heavy storm rain jacket and hoodie combo, and after testing it out, I can confidently say this is the best 3-in-1 rain jacket I've ever owned. It folds down its own stash pockets as well. It takes up almost no space in your backpack or pocket, and it's a total game changer in heavy or light rain. This thing is fully waterproof, and that's because it's got fully taped seams, silicone-sealed zips, adjustable cuffs, and the hood is designed to not allow any water near your face. And it's not just any old jacket. It's also got 5 waterproof pockets, so all of your gear stays dry. Whether you're hiking, fishing, biking, or getting caught in a storm on your morning commute, this is the one crucial rain jacket that you need. And here's the best part. It actually zips into the Bearskin hoodie, turning both into a 3-in-1 all-weather system. So your fleece stays warm and dry underneath, and you stay comfortable and dry on the outside. Look, when you order your Bearskin rain jacket, you'll get fast delivery and free shipping from within the U.S. To get yours for 60% off, just text MATT to 36912. Even if you're busy right now, text MATT, M-A-T-T, to 36912, and they'll send you a link so you can lock in your discount for later. Don't miss out. So if you go outdoors, rain or shine, text MATT to 36912 and get 60% off the most badass rain jacket on the market. Now that a critical mass of voters in our largest city have decided to support a socialist Muslim rapper from Uganda who openly despises every founding principle of this country, you're hearing a lot of predictions about what New York might look like in a few years. And they all aim to answer the question, what happens when you eliminate the police department, nationalize the grocery stores, prevent law-abiding citizens from owning firearms, shield millions of illegal aliens from deportations, force taxpayers to fund sex changes for children, and prevent landlords from raising rent? Well, nothing like it has really been attempted before. You show this platform to even the most dedicated commissar in the Soviet Union, and he'd tell you to go easy on Karl Marx and touch some grass. There's no doubt that New York will be rendered completely uninhabitable if any significant portion of this platform is ever implemented. But all the discussion about Zoran Mamdani and his platform, as deranged as it is, ultimately misses the point. Everyone knows that implementing communism is going to be a disaster. There's no need to belabor that fact. What's a little less obvious is that everything that's about to happen to New York is the inevitable result of large-scale demographic change caused by legal migration. Yes, legal migration. For all the time we spend on this show and everywhere else discussing the disastrous consequences of allowing illegal aliens to flood into this country, the fact remains that most foreign nationals don't need to sneak across the border. Instead, over the past several generations, our government has let them in. And that's not to say that all legal migration always has the same effects everywhere in every case. Obviously, that's not true. More than half of the residents of Miami were born outside of the country, for example. Most of them came from Cuba. And nobody would confuse Miami for a dysfunctional socialist dystopia. Miami just overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump in the last election. After years of supporting Democrats like Hillary Clinton as recently as 2016, Miami is now a reliably conservative place, at least by voting standards. And there's an obvious reason for that. People fleeing Cuba have no desire to see the same socialist policies implemented in their new country. They see exactly what Democrats are trying to do, and they reject it. But New York City, where nearly half of the residents are now foreign-born, is a very different story. And that's because the vast majority of lawful migrants to New York are not coming from places like Cuba. Instead, they're coming from places like Guinea, Venezuela, Ecuador, Haiti, Senegal, Colombia. Migration from these countries has been a disaster for the United States. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Several of these countries are in Africa with populations that are around 98% Muslim, which is why the Muslim population in this country has exploded since the 1990s. You can see the data right here. It's a very sudden and sharp increase in the Muslim population in just a generation or so. And as a result of this increase, as of the latest count a few years ago, New York currently has well over 1 million Muslims, or roughly 15% of the electorate. And for the most part, these Muslim migrants are fleeing their countries for economic reasons, not ideological ones, which means they have no desire to assimilate here. They don't want to suddenly embrace any of our values. They simply want to take advantage of our economy. But we shouldn't be surprised by what we're seeing in New York or what we're about to see. And that's because this same exact story is played out in several other major cities in the West already. Here's what London looked like in 1961. It was more than 97% white. And it stayed that way for a while. By the 1970s, whites still made up more than 90% of the population in London. As of 1991, whites were down to about 80%. And then very rapidly, demographics began to change. And by 2001, whites were only 59% of London's population. The number continued to drop through 2021, as you can see here. This is the 2021 pie graph. And now white people make up well under 40% of London's population. So from like 98% to 40%, which is a staggering decline. And it's a very close parallel to what's happened in New York City. In 1950, New York was something like 90% white. And then from 1970 to 1980, New York's white population dropped by more than 20%. Now it's down to around 30%. So London's transformation was a little bit more gradual, but it's just as stark. And keep in mind, as this is happening, it's not like some sort of transfer is going on. White people are not flooding into African countries and taking them over. There aren't millions of British citizens storming into Senegal and winning pivotal elections over there. This is a one-way surge of migration. And most of it has been lawful for the most part. And the effects on London have been catastrophic by every metric. Here's just one of many indicators. In London, they don't have housing projects. Instead, they have council houses, they call them. And that's the name for government housing for poor people. Now, if you had to guess, what percentage of these council houses are occupied by foreign nationals who aren't paying any taxes whatsoever? Well, as it turns out, according to a recent estimate, that number is 48%. Here's what that looks like. Yes, 1/2 of the government housing in London, which British citizens pay for, and which is intended for British citizens in a time of emergency, is currently occupied by foreigners, by foreign nationals. In the borough of Brent, which is in northwest London, the number is 61%. Now, the government won't do anything about this because the government has been captured as well. The vast majority of the parliament wants to see more migration, not less. At the moment, only 9 of the 75 members of parliament from London are conservatives. London, of course, also has a Muslim mayor. Within the past few years, a lot of other British towns and cities have followed suit. Oldham, Oxford, Sheffield, Brighton, a couple others have all had Muslim mayors in recent years. And here's what some of them look like. Not exactly a very diverse group. But if you question the wisdom of importing so many foreign nationals that your government becomes unrecognizable, if you do that in London, you'll be thrown in prison. 2 years ago in East London, a man was arrested for complaining about the number of Palestinian flags in his neighborhood. He said, quote, "Look at this crap here. You let them into this country, and this is the S they come up with." Within hours, the police announced that they had arrested that guy for saying that, for committing a, quote, racially aggravated Section 5 public order offense. They've also imprisoned several other British citizens for the Orwellian crimes of publishing written material to stir up racial hatred and, quote, false communication. As we discussed recently, one of those citizens was a mother who was just sentenced to several years in prison for a mean tweet about migrant hotels. Now, if you complain about any of this or demonstrate publicly in favor of these political prisoners, then huge numbers of Muslims will gather in the city center in London in a show of force. That's what happened recently in London following anti-immigrant demonstrations, as documented by Andy No. Watch this. Now, you can pretty much pick any major European city and you'll see similar footage. It's getting more and more common as the foreigners keep coming. Take Paris, for example. More than 40% of the residents of Paris under the age of 20 currently report having at least one parent who was not born in France. And to put it mildly, these foreign nationals aren't doing great things for Paris's tourism industry. Foreigners commit something like 70% of all violent robberies in Paris. 70%. They commit more than 90% of thefts, 60% of sexual assaults on public transit. They're responsible for nearly 80% of solved rape cases in Paris. As Nate Hochman has pointed out, you'll find similar statistics in Switzerland. Roughly 30% of Switzerland's population is foreign-born, and yet they're responsible for vastly more crime than their demographics would suggest. Foreigners are responsible for 45% of homicides and 47% of rapes. Migrants from Afghanistan and Pakistan are 3 times more likely to be convicted of a crime compared to the native population. Africans are more than 5 times more likely. It's the same story in Austria. So let's put that data up on the screen. This has been compiled from various official sources. And as you can see, Afghanistan is very highly represented in the murder category, really punching above their weight there. Meanwhile, the Polish are pretty well behaved. Then you have places like Serbia and Slovenia who are statistically overrepresented in total crimes. All in all, foreigners account for roughly 40% of all crime in Austria. The same is true in Spain, where foreign nationals make up less than 15% of the population, but are responsible for half the armed robberies and 40% of the rapes. And again, many of these so-called migrants are perfectly legal. Here's a story from just the other day in the Washington Post, quote, "As Trump shuts down migrants, Spain opens its doors and fuels economic growth. A landmark bill now being negotiated in the Congress of Deputies could grant legal amnesty to hundreds of thousands of migrants, most of them Spanish speakers from predominantly Catholic countries in Latin America. Those newcomers often enjoy visa-free travel to Spain, even as Madrid controversially works with Morocco and other countries to block irregular arrivals from African coasts, though Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has also called for tolerance toward migrants fleeing poverty and violence in Africa." Yes, they're calling for tolerance towards irregular arrivals from the African coast, which has to be one of the better euphemisms for foreign invader that you'll hear. But it's a useful illustration of the broader point, which is that all of this violence and social decay, it's all intentional. It takes different forms in all these countries. They all have their own version of Zoran Mamdani, but the end result is the same in every case. As native populations are replaced by foreign nationals from Africa and Central America, countries become unrecognizable and ultimately unlivable. And the process by which these migrants arrive isn't particularly important. I mean, illegal immigration is not the only problem. It's not even the main problem. Many of the vandals who are destroying Western civilization are walking in through the front door. And that's why before more American cities start looking like New York and Los Angeles, we need an immediate ban on virtually all foreign migration, including legal migration in this country. Countries like France, Britain, Switzerland, Austria have sent very clear signals that we should not follow in their path. And we can either pay attention to those signals, or one decaying metropolis at a time, we can suffer the same fate. Now let's get to our 5 headlines. We're all feeling it. Costs are rising on everything: gas, groceries, home repairs. And if you're a homeowner, you probably thought, should I call American Financing to refinance and pay off this credit card debt? And you second guess yourself because of that low mortgage rate that you currently have. Well, listen, that low rate, it's not saving you if you're drowning in credit card interest at 25% or more. That's the math that nobody wants to face, but it's costing you thousands of dollars. Here's the truth. If you're only making minimum payments, that debt will follow you for years. And that's why people are calling American Financing, because they're saving customers an average of $800 a month by using their equity to finally break free from credit card debt. You owe it to your family to see what's possible. No upfront fees, no pressure. It costs you nothing to find out what you could save every month. If you start today, you may be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. Call American Financing today, 866-569-4711. That's 866-569-4711, or visit americanfinancing.net/Walsh. It's been 3 years since Roe v. Wade was overturned this June 24th. That's the anniversary. And here's what most people don't realize. Abortion numbers have actually reached a 10-year high. The landscape has completely shifted, though. Over 60% of abortions now happen at home with medication, drugs, often with women going through this alone without fully understanding what's ahead. And that's where preborn network clinics step in. They're seeing young mothers who were told this would be simple, but the reality is heartbreaking. Many go through this traumatic experience discovering that what they were told was just tissue, quote unquote, looks very different from what they expected because it is, in fact, a living child. 11% face serious health complications, and countless others carry emotional scars. And of course, in 100% of cases, a child is killed, which is the greatest tragedy of all. When you support preborn, you're helping both mothers and babies. They provide hope, support, and truth when it's needed most. They've already rescued over 350,000 babies, but so many more need help. Preborn clinics offer free ultrasounds, counseling, and practical resources like baby supplies and financial assistance. When a scared young woman walks through the doors, she finds people who genuinely care about her future and her baby's life. To donate, call pound 250 and say baby, or visit preborn.com/Walsh. Your tax-deductible gift makes this life-saving work possible. Again, that's preborn.com/Walsh. Okay, a little more on the New York City mayor race. On CNN, they were talking about the Islamophobic attacks on Zohran, attacks from quote-unquote MAGA stars. And Jamaal Bowman, fire alarm enthusiast, was on the panel where he proceeded to have a bit of a meltdown. You can understand why. I mean, Jamaal Bowman, things are not going well for Jamaal. He was voted out of Congress in disgrace, and now he is completely irrelevant. And he's very frustrated by that. He's lashing out, looking for some attention. And so here's what he said. Listen.
And the problem is we are not dealing with America's original sin and its disease of hate and racism towards black and brown people and sexism towards women and anti-LGBTQ sentiment. We are not dealing with that. Your colleagues in the Republican Party do not hold each other accountable when it comes to the racism that comes from the party on a consistent basis.
Congressman, I mean, where are you on?
You can't be calm about this. I'm a black man in America. The reason why heart disease...
I'm white, I can't comment
Listen to what I'm saying. The reason why heart disease and cancer and obesity and diabetes are bigger in the black community is because of the stress we carry from having to deal with being called the N-word directly or indirectly every day. If your colleagues would listen and try to learn and engage and grow and stop being so hateful, we could have a better country.
All right, so that was mostly incoherent. He just starts throwing everything against the wall. One thing, he's bringing up Rodney King and lynchings in the 1920s and January 6th, like just everything. So it's you listen to this guy, it's a little bit like, it reminds you a little bit of arguing with a woman. No offense to women, but women like can never stay on one topic. You start by arguing about something that happened 5 seconds ago. Next thing you know, you're relitigating an argument that you had in 2007 or something. So something similar is happening here, but let's go back to his initial claim. He said, I'm a black man in America. The reason why heart disease and cancer and obesity and diabetes are bigger in the black community is because of the stress we carry from having to deal with being called the N-word. Now, we're going to assume he's referring to white people calling black people the N-word. That's what causes cancer. It's like breaking news here. It's a breaking medical news here today. The N-word causes cancer. But presumably, the cancer-causing N-word is only that which is uttered out of the mouth of a white person. Because, of course, black people are called the N-word every day, 1,000 times a day, by other black people. So if that causes cancer, then the cancer rate in the black community would be like 100%. But I assume that he means that a black person being called the N-word by a white person is what causes cancer. That's what he's saying. And if that's the case, that's actually great news. Because that would mean that the cancer rate in the black community should be like 0%. Considering that the average black person can go his entire life in this country and never once be called the N-word by a white person. Like you go your whole life and it would never happen. So if that's the primary cause of mortality for black people, then I guess like that's immortality basically. Unfortunately, though, Bowman is obviously making all this up. It's total nonsense, of course. And you knew it was going to be nonsense. The moment that Jamaal Bowman opens his mouth to say anything, you know that what follows will be nonsense. But especially whenever a statement begins with, I'm a black man in America. And I'm not sure if any studies have been done on this, but I would wager that if you looked at it, if you were to find every case in the last 30 years of someone starting a sentence by saying, I'm a black man in America, like 97% of the time when someone starts a sentence that way, whatever follows after that will be some mixture of lies and nonsense and irrelevant personal complaints. That's just the way it always works. 97% of the time, studies have shown, I assume. We haven't even made to the best part because there's actually two other clips from this very same segment. This was a ripe segment, a segment ripe with stupidity. So here's Bowman again. I think this is continuing on the same rant, and this time with a little bit of Jussie Smollett flair thrown in. Listen.
I don't want to fight. I just want to chill. I just want to knock. I was walking down the street the other day. Some white dude, bald head, he looked me, called me a piece of shit in my face. Said, I'm going to get what's coming to me. Why I got to deal with that, dog? In Yonkers, New York.
Well, can I tell you something?
I'm not making that up.
Stephen Miller needs to remember.
Okay, first of all, even if that happened, what does that have to do with anything? I mean, you're supposed to be having a debate about the mayoral race, and here you are crying because some random person was mean to you. An incident that, along with being totally irrelevant, is also, of course, imaginary. Because in order for us to believe that this happened, we would have to believe two things. First, that somebody recognized Jamaal Bowman walking down the street. And second, that Jamaal Bowman was verbally harassed by a white person and didn't pull out his phone immediately to document it. Now, the first part of that he was recognized is difficult to believe. The second part is impossible to believe. It is impossible to believe that a guy like Jamaal Bowman could have an experience like that and not immediately pull out his phone and take full advantage of it. I mean, Jamaal lives every day of his life. He lives fantasizing about a moment like this. About a moment of being accosted on the street randomly by a white guy. That is his dream come true. He wants nothing more than for that to happen. Every day he wakes up and prays that this will happen. And we're supposed to believe that it actually did happen and he wasn't ready. Like, this guy walks down the street, he got his phone in his hand, just waiting, praying for this to happen. And yet it happened and he forgot to record it. I mean, that would be tragic. That's actually tragic. And it also just didn't happen. There was one other quick moment from this same panel. One of my producers caught this and flagged it for me. Here it is. Listen.
I think this is just one of another example of a trend of the Trump administration and his proxies othering people with their language, right? You saw Vice President call Senator Padilla Jose Padilla intentionally. You saw President Trump has previously asked Asian staffers, where are you really from? Matt Walsh, another proxy for President Trump, made an implication that because a significant percentage of people in New York are foreign-born, that it's not an American city anymore. This is an administration that has vilified the word diversity.
Yeah, that's right. I'm a Trump proxy. I have learned from CNN. Unfortunately, I am like the worst Trump proxy in the world. They really, they're not getting their money's worth from me as a proxy because I just spent the last week vocally disagreeing with Trump on the Iran situation. In fact, I vocally disagree with Trump all the time, and I'm never shy about saying it. So I don't know. I should be fired from my proxy job, but somehow they keep me employed. I don't know why. And by the way, the Trump administration did not vilify the term diversity. That's not what the Trump administration, it's been vilified in the minds of most normal people for much longer than that. And why is that? Well, because we've noticed that diversity is code every single time for deliberately making things less white. That's all it is. Diversity it's just an agenda to minimize white people. That's all which is why which is why you will never, ever hear the left celebrate diversity when a majority black place or institution or town becomes more white. Even though that means that it's becoming more diverse, like definitionally. But in that case, that's gentrification, and that's something to be mourned because diversity only goes one way. That's why they talk about diverse people, right? A diverse person. Even an individual person can be diverse. Well, how is that possible? Well, because diverse just means not white. That's all it means. Walk into a room with 100% black people, and it's a diverse room, you'll be told. Walk into a room with 100% white people, and it's not diverse. Walk into a room with 100% black people, and you are a white person, and you have somehow made the room less diverse. Okay? This is what... But if you walk into a room with 100% white people and you're a black person, you've made it more diverse. So that's the way the word is used, and that's all that it means, pretty clearly. All right, let's... We'll get off the subject of the mayor race in New York soon, but I wanted to cover this also, which is related. So there's this guy, Sneako, who's I guess a relatively well-known streamer, Gen Z streamer guy, and he's supposedly right-wing, even far-right, we're told. And yet he was really happy that Zohran Mamdani, a foreign socialist, won the primary. And there are certain corners of the internet that where you're seeing this. People who claim to be not even just like conservative, but far right, are happy about this. A foreign socialist winning the primary. It seems kind of odd. Well, here he is explaining why he thinks it's a good thing.
Hey, didn't see you there. Congrats, though, to Zohran Mamdani. It's not over yet, but it's looking like he won the mayoral race in New York City. We were all over every borough today, seeing people super excited to go out and vote. I supported him because he's the only non-Zionist candidate on that stage. I thought you needed to be bought and sold, but people are energetic. People are tired of the Zionism, and I'm excited to see what he's got. I'm not a socialist myself. I don't want everyone to be a communist getting free stuff, but I think he has some cool ideas. Hopefully he can do the best, man, and wish you the best of luck if you do win. New York is with you, and we want you to do well, man.
Now, this happened across my feed, and I responded to that, and I said, kind of with a sort of the obvious response, and I said, he's an anti-American foreigner who wants to castrate children with tax money, you absolute moron. Not the most polite response on my part, I'll admit, kind of rude, but yet fully deserved. This guy pretends to be right-wing conservative, and here he is supporting the most left-wing mayoral candidate for a major American city like ever. A candidate who wants to abolish the police department, which is bad enough, but he wants to do it in the name of queer liberation. Okay, so that's what you're supporting, which makes him a moron at best. I'm actually being that's a generous interpretation to say that he's being a moron, and. So Sneako shot back with a devastating comeback. I've never heard this one before. Get ready for it. He responded and wrote, quote, "Your boss is Ben Shapiro." And, I said that he's dodging the point, trying to get him to answer whether he actually agrees with Mamdani's actual platform, his far left socialist platform. That's the point here. Kept dodging and evading. And then he finally responded with this video. Watch.
I'm very excited to see what Zohran does in the next coming months. It's like the most controversial subject on X, on Twitter right now. Matt Walsh was talking, called me what did Matt Walsh call me? He called me an absolute moron. But he's bought and sold by Ben Shapiro. Matt Walsh, you can't talk about foreigners when you're owned by a foreigner. Your boss is literally a Mossad spy. So before you complain, I'm Donnie saying defund the police. I don't agree with his socialist takes. I don't agree with him supporting transgenders and surgeries for children. If he does, I'm completely against that. But the most important issue to me is somebody who's anti-Zionist right now. And if he's a real New Yorker and he has a vision for the city that aligns with a lot of the people, then I wish him the best of luck. Does it make me a socialist? No. Does that make me a queer liberationist? No. But I think Matt Walsh should shut the up. Quit your job. If you're going to talk about foreigners, stop working for an Israeli spy. All right, then we can have this conversation. And right now, it just seems like a whole bunch of yap.
So, yeah, like I said, moron. The guy's got the intellect of a caterpillar, so it's probably not worth engaging, but I will anyway. And we're not going to waste time on the your boss is Ben Shapiro thing. I mean, Ben is not a foreigner, first of all. He was born in America. Also, he's not my boss. And anyone who listens to this show can easily tell that nobody has any influence over anything that I say on this show except me. Ben and I disagree very much on plenty of things, mostly foreign policy related. And I am not shy about expressing those views. And any honest person knows that, which you don't have to take my word for it. Just like listen to the show, and especially this last week, and you'll see it for yourself. But more importantly, he says that he doesn't agree with Zoran's socialist views or his plan to castrate kids with tax money or to nationalize grocery stores or abolish the police or queer liberation. And yet he says he agrees with his vision for the city because Zoran is a real New Yorker, but his vision for the city is comprised of all the things you said you disagree with. His vision for the city is his platform. His platform is nationalize the grocery stores, abolish the police, queer liberation, $60 million to castrate kids with tax money, et cetera, and so forth. Okay? So that is the vision of the city. You said you don't agree with that, but yet you like his vision for the city. How does that make sense? And how can he be a real New Yorker when he's from Uganda? He's been a U.S. citizen for such a short period of time that he's not even eligible legally to run for Senate in this country. And yet you want him to run the most populous city in the country. How does that work? Well, we know how that all works. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. But for guys like Sneako, who pretend to be America first, all that actually matters is Israel. That's all that matters to these guys. So Zoran, who's running for mayor, okay, like he's running for mayor. He's not running even for he's not running for president. He's not. Foreign policy for the mayor is not something that should really factor in. But he doesn't like Israel. Zoran doesn't, and that's all that matters to Sneako and his ilk. And it's interesting because what that shows you is that guys like this, Sneako, are themselves Israel first from a different direction. Because that's all they care about. That's all they care about. I mean, Israel first is a real thing. There are people who are Israel first. But there are two ways to be Israel first. And one way is, we heard it from, who was it? Tammy Bruce, State Department spokeswoman, who said that, America is the greatest country in the world next to Israel. And there's people in the comments, we talked about it a few days ago, people in the comments saying, you're being unfair to her. Next to just means alongside of. Which, by the way, even that would be a problem. Okay? You're an American and you work for the government. You need to think unequivocally that we are the greatest country in the world. To put even any other country on the same pedestal as us would be a huge problem. But next to means second to. That's what it means. But the definition of the term, look it up, it means second to. So, that's someone who is Israel first by her own testimony. By her own testimony, she puts Israel first and then America second. So that's Israel first. Yeah, that exists. And that's a problem. If you put any country other than our own before ours and you're an American, much less an American public official or politician, that's a huge problem. Ilhan Omar is Somalia first. We've talked about that on the show many times. The things that she said, she's more proud of Somalia. She likes Somalia. She is here to work for the interests of Somalia. And she's been very clear about that. She's been very open about it. Pramila Jayapal came here she's from India, I believe. And she came here and she said that her primary goal is to work for the interests of immigrants, to work for foreigners, not this country. I'll call all that stuff out. And if you're putting Israel before America, I'll call that out too. I got no problem calling that out. But then you have Israel first from the other direction, from the kind of negative direction, where someone like Sneako, all he cares about is Israel in a negative way. Which is why he will vote for a candidate for mayor, even though he allegedly disagrees with the guy's entire platform, his whole domestic agenda, everything he plans to do to the community where you live. And you will still vote for him because if he'll stand up and say, I don't like Israel. He could say, Let's castrate kids. We'll pay for it with tax money, abolish the police department, get rid of the grocery stores, bread lines, anarchy, lawlessness. Oh, and also I don't like Israel. And you, like a moron, will sit there and say, oh, well, he's my guy then. Because of his view about this foreign country that's not even relevant to what his job is as mayor of the town. So that is also Israel first from a different direction. And it's totally absurd. And so don't call yourself America first. You don't give a about this country, as you have made very clear. So get the term America first out of your mouth. You are not America first. You know, vote for a foreign socialist Ugandan to run the biggest city in the country, and then you call yourself America first. Give me a break. Okay, one other thing. Update to a story we followed very closely here. Collin County District Attorney Greg Willis announced the results of the grand jury indictment in the Karmelo Anthony case. Karmelo Anthony, of course, is the guy who stabbed Austin Metcalf to death. We followed that story very closely. And here's Greg Willis announcing the grand jury's decision a couple days ago. Listen.
Good afternoon. Earlier this spring, our community was shaken by what happened at a school track meet in Frisco. The violent loss of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. For weeks now, my team has been presenting evidence to the grand jury, and today I summarized that evidence, and I asked the grand jury to return a first-degree murder indictment against Karmelo Anthony, which they did. With this indictment, the case now moves formally into the court system. From this point forward, we'll continue doing our job both fully and fairly to pursue justice under the law. As for the scheduling of the trial, that will be up to the court. But when the time comes, we will be ready. Now, we know that this case has struck a deep nerve here in Collin County and beyond. And that's understandable. When something like this happens at a school event, it shakes people to the core. But let's remember that the justice system works best when it moves with steadiness and principle. That's what we're committed to, and that's what this case deserves. We're also mindful of Austin's family and everyone who loved him. Please keep them in your thoughts, and if you're willing, your prayers as well. Finally, let's remember that a defendant is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in a court of law.
So, first-degree murder charge, what does that mean? It means this is a slam dunk case. It means the self-defense claim is completely bogus, which any intelligent person already knew that. They're not going to seek, much less would they get a first-degree murder charge unless they have this guy dead to rights, which they do. And there's a lot of evidence here. First of all, there's the fact that the killer confessed to it right away, so that's a pretty big deal. He stabbed someone to death. He stabbed someone in the heart and confessed to the cops. Said, "I did it." So, and they have eyewitnesses. There were people all around, and they have video. And we don't know exactly how much video they have, how many videos there are, how much footage there is. But we know they do have video. The odd thing, though, is that we haven't seen any of the video. There were security cameras at this track meet. There were people all around. All of them obviously had phones. And yet we've seen no footage from this incident, not even footage after the incident. I mean, you're really going to tell me that it's possible that nobody caught the actual stabbing itself on their phone. That's possible. Even that I would expect somebody did. But are you telling me that nobody in the immediate aftermath pulled out their phone and filmed anything? I mean, it would be the first time in the last 20 years where there's been some kind of dramatic incident and people were around with phones and no one at any point pulled their phone out. That's hard to believe. We do know, though, that for sure that they have this surveillance footage, that was released about a week ago, sort of released. There was a very small collection of journalists who were permitted to watch it and report on what they saw, but they couldn't record it. They couldn't publish the video. They could just watch it and describe it. And the Daily Mail was there. They were one of the select few outlets that were allowed to see this. And I'm going to read a little bit of their write-up. This is from a few days ago. It says, on Monday, the Daily Mail became one of the only two news organizations granted access to surveillance footage of the deadly incident, a killing that shocked the nation and ignited debates about race, privilege, and criminal justice. The 40-minute surveillance video recorded from a stationary camera on the opposite side of the football field captures the 10 minutes leading up to the attack and the desperate efforts by Metcalf's twin brothers and others to save his life before paramedics arrived. Metcalf, a student at Memorial High School, was stabbed after confronting Anthony, who attended Centennial High School, about sitting under the team of a tent he was not affiliated with. Anthony has admitted to the stabbing, but maintains he acted in self-defense. Initially, Frisco police said an altercation between the teens led to the violent encounter. However, the footage reviewed by the Daily Mail at the Frisco Independent School District's headquarters shows no obvious physical confrontation between the two prior to the stabbing. The Daily Mail did not detect anything that indicated chaos was about to ensue. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, it becomes apparent that the moment has happened when an armed Anthony attacked Metcalf. The stabbing itself is not visible on camera. While other video angles may exist, the surveillance reviewed appears to challenge the self-defense claim, offering little visible evidence that Anthony was in immediate danger before the attack. So there you go. We still haven't seen the footage ourselves, but the Daily Mail saw it. I don't know why. I don't know why they're doing it this way, and why they'd only invite 2 news outlets to view the footage. And, they say there's no indication of self-defense, no indication that Anthony was in any kind of physical danger at all. Because of course he wasn't. Of course he wasn't. What happened here was very clear from the beginning. Anthony went into a tent where he didn't belong. He was told to leave. He responded to that by stabbing Austin Metcalf to death. The idea that he could have legitimately feared for his life at a track meet when he has decided to walk into this tent, it's a tent, right? You could walk away from it. There are countless angles where you could leave the tent, right? So the claim never made any sense. So he's in fear for his life, but he's come to this tent. He's told to leave and he fears for his life, but rather than just leave the tent, he stays, and he's the only one who's armed in this encounter, and yet he's the one who fears for his life. What's he worried is going to happen? He thinks the opposing track team is going to gang up and kill him. Is that what he thinks? No, of course not. So why did he stab him? Well, for the same reason that people are killed every day in the inner city in particular. Which is for no reason. Just pure nihilistic violence for the sake of it. That's why. And the fact is that black teens like Karmelo Anthony commit violence like that all the time. Right? That's it. And here's the truth, and we all know this, that if you're in a situation, again, this is one of those things, it's so many cases where we're all supposed to pretend we don't know things that we actually know. Or we're supposed to act confused about things. Well, what do you mean? He just stabbed him? This young man was told to leave a tent, and are you claiming that he would just respond violently to that? What? Well, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened. And we all know that. I mean, if you go up to a young black male who's being disruptive in some way, or he's somewhere he's not supposed to be, and you tell him to please quiet down or to leave, there is a chance that he responds with violence. Not in self-defense, not because he thinks his life is in danger, but just to prove how tough he is, just to inflict violence for the sake of it. Right? We all know that. Which is why in so many cases, in similar sorts of situations, the white people around in many cases are not going to say anything because they're worried about this exact kind of response. And they're not worried because they're racist. They're worried because they're capable of basic pattern recognition. They know they have some basic idea of the data, the statistics. Statistically, young black males are more violent than any other demographic group. Everyone just knows that. If you have a group of black teens in a movie theater who are being loud and disruptive, very often, if you've got white people around, they are going to be very hesitant to say anything, to say, hey, could you guys quiet down? Because they're worried about exactly this kind of response. And is that fear baseless? No, of course it's not. So that's what happened here. which makes it first-degree murder, and that's the charge. And yet this guy is currently out on bail. Okay, this is pretty rare. You have someone on a first-degree murder charge who's facing life in prison and is out on bail right now. And why would that be rare? Well, because the flight risk now is monumental. This he's facing the very real likelihood, what should be basically a certainty, that he's going to prison for the rest of his life. Now he's got nothing to lose. And on top of that, this family has just been gifted $500,000. So the flight risk is very, very high right now, and yet he's currently out on bail. So the whole thing just makes no sense at all. This month, Tax Network USA proudly celebrates our nation's birthday, honoring freedom, resilience, and financial independence. To mark the occasion, they're offering 10% off all services through July 4th. If you're dealing with back taxes or missed the April 15th deadline, don't wait. The IRS is rapidly stepping up enforcement. Penalties can add up quickly, up to 5% per month, maxing out at 25% of your total tax bill just for not filing. That's on top of what you already owe. But there's good news. Tax Network USA can still help you turn things around. Whether you're self-employed, run a business, or your books are a complete mess, their team knows how to cut through the chaos and find solutions that work. Your consultation is always free, and getting ahead of the problem now could help you avoid harsh penalties, wage garnishments, or surprise bank levies. Take the first step. Call 800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Walsh. And don't forget, you'll get 10% off all services through July 4th as part of their celebration of our nation's birthday. Regain control of your finances with Tax Network USA. We're starting our Independence Day celebration early with something big, 6 months of Daily Wire Plus absolutely free. Right now, when you join Daily Wire Plus for a year, we'll cover half of it. That means ad-free shows from the most trusted voices of conservative media, exclusive docs, hit movies, breaking news alerts, and the best investigative journalism in the business all in one place. You're not just subscribing to become a member, you're joining millions of people who share your values and your fight. Don't wait. Get 6 months free right now at dailywireplus.com. Now let's get to our daily cancellation. For a very long time, I've made my position clear on the entire concept of hate crimes. As a category, hate crimes don't make any sense at all. A large number of crimes are motivated by hatred in some capacity or another. People don't generally murder or assault other people because they love them, after all. So really, hate crime means, in practice, that the perpetrator demonstrated hatred supposedly towards a certain demographic, which for political reasons is somehow entitled to more protections than the rest of us. That's how hate crimes, that's what it actually means. That's one of the obvious issues with hate crimes. Another issue is that, as we discussed in detail a couple of years ago, police departments often have to make very subjective judgments about what constitutes a hate crime. Typically, if somebody reports an anti-black or anti-Muslim hate crime, even if there's no proof, it winds up in the statistics. No need for a trial or anything. But if an Asian person or a white person is beaten, it's usually just chalked up as a random act of violence and everybody goes about their day. All that's to say, I don't need really another reason to reject the entire category of hate crimes. It's such a pointless and cynical concept that it didn't seem possible to discredit it any more than it's already been discredited. And then I came across this story. Watch.
Well, tonight, a group of teens is facing possible hate crime charges after Atlanta police say they vandalized pride flags in Midtown.
That's right. So we know that police arrested 4 of the teens at the scene overnight, but are asking the public to help them find the other 2. And as 11 Alive's Gilad Malamed reports, the incident has some community members heartbroken and disturbed.
Circling one of the city's most recognizable symbols of LGBTQ pride, Atlanta police say this group of teenagers used knives to destroy another pride symbol. Police found these flags at the corner of 10th and Piedmont.
Oh, gosh. That is so unnecessary. That is just heartbreaking.
Donna Cooper goes on walks here several times a week.
I think the kind of people that do that sort of thing are going to pick an area, well, they'll get the attention.
It's an area Richard Ramey, the owner of Atlanta Eagle, says
it's almost like someone has come into our home and tried to harm us.
Atlanta Eagle is a gay bar, and Ramey is heavily involved in the LGBTQ community. Police responded to the 911 call around 1:40 a.m.
Yeah, they got knives. They're stabbing the flags.
And found 4 of the 6 suspects, charging the 16, 17, and 18-year-olds with criminal mischief. They say the group drove in from the Dallas and Cartersville area, but they're still investigating if they came to the area specifically to vandalize the flags.
We take this community very seriously. We take all of Atlanta seriously, but definitely in this area, we want to make sure that the residents feel safe and that we will respond as fast as we can.
That's one of the more nauseating press conferences from a police department that you will ever see. The most useless and corrupt police departments obviously love coming down hard on cases like this because rounding up children is a lot easier than actually protecting the community. And we'll have more on that in a second. But first, let's get back to the guy from the gay bar. And here's what he said, in case you missed it. Quote, "It's almost like someone has come into our home and tried to harm us." Close quote. Well, the word almost is doing a lot of work in that statement because actually, no, that's not remotely what happened. What happened is that the government decided to force its secular religion on everybody else by placing pride branding all over the crosswalk, and people got tired of it. Nobody went into anybody's home or attacked anybody. In fact, it's not even clear that they damaged anyone else's property. Here's some additional reporting from the local PBS station. Quote, 4 teenagers were arrested early Tuesday morning and could face hate crime charges after police say they stole and cut up pride flags outside one of Atlanta's most well-known gay bars. It's unclear where the flags came from. Yes, it's unclear where the flags came from. According to the AP, the perpetrators, quote, pulled down LGBTQ plus pride flags, although they still don't clarify where the flags came from exactly. So again, it's not clear that anybody else's private property was destroyed here, but still, for destroying those pride flags of unknown origin, these individuals have been charged with obstruction, criminal damage to property, conspiracy, and prowling. And on top of that, quote, police also issued a citation to Aaron Petrus, the 41-year-old father of the juvenile, for failing to supervise his son. And as you heard, hate crime charges are apparently pending. So yes, they've gone after the kid's father because his child dared to defile the sacred pride flag. And keep in mind, Atlanta is one of the most dangerous cities in the country. It's a total hellhole. And a lot of young people are committing far more serious crimes than this. Roughly 50% of minors incarcerated in Georgia identify as gang members. And one of them is named Jaden Myrick, who was convicted of committing a fatal shooting at a wedding several years ago. Myrick testified that he joined a gang when he was just 9 years old. And there's a picture of Jaden in case you needed the visual. And to give some more context for this crime, Jaden Myrick was 17 years old when he went to a country club in Buckhead in July of 2018 looking to commit some armed robbery. And that's when he spotted several people who were waiting for an Uber after the ceremony. And so he robbed all of them as he had planned. And then when one of the men tried to reason with the robbers and ask for his driver's license back, Jaden Myrick shot the guy to death. And here's what the victim looked like. He was a white man named Christian Broder. Following the shooting, Jaden Myrick mocked the victim's family, attempted to intimidate witnesses as well. In other words, he committed one of the most heinous and psychopathic crimes imaginable. But guess what? The police never went after Jaden Myrick's mother or his father, who we can assume is nowhere in the picture. They never threw his father in prison for raising a horrible child who were failing to raise, who began committing crimes when he was 9 years old, culminating in his decision to murder a man at a wedding. They never held the father responsible for allowing his child to be groomed into joining a gang before he was even a teenager. In fact, they didn't even really go after the gang. And of course, that's the norm. The police don't care about the absent black fathers whose neglected kids become killers and degenerates. But the moment that a kid defiles the sacred pride flag, they go and arrest the parents as well. Even aside from the sheer hypocrisy and insanity on display here, this arrest raises more than a couple of questions. And here's the big one. How can it be a hate crime to destroy a pride flag? Who is it a hate crime against exactly? Like, in order for it to be a hate crime, you'd think there'd have to be a victim. Who's the victim? Gay people as a whole? Well, how were any of them in any way injured by this? No gay person was attacked. No gay person was threatened. No trans-identifying person was assaulted in any way. In fact, no gay person would even know that this happened had they not pressed charges. So what is the harm? You might say, well, this is a symbol of their sexual preferences, and they feel very offended when it's destroyed. And apparently, that's what they're claiming. They're saying that the gay people saw their flags being ripped up, and they became hysterical, and they felt like their homes were being invaded or something. But if that's the case, why do we allow people to burn the American flag? Every court in the country will tell you that it's protected speech under the First Amendment. You can burn whatever American flags you want, no matter how much it offends anybody. Now, people who value the flag and love this country, they don't get to throw you in jail because you hurt their feelings. They don't get to throw you in jail because they feel like you're invading their home when you show up here and burn the flag. But the gay flag is apparently special somehow. Now, you might say, well, in this case, the flags in Atlanta belong to somebody else, so they were private property, and you can't destroy private property. But based on the news reports, we actually don't know that. We have no idea who owned these flags at the moment, but let's assume that it's true. Let's assume that these teenagers destroyed a $20 flag that somebody else, either the city or the gay bar, paid for. Well, in scenario number one, where the city paid for this gay pride flag, then obviously there should be no charges at all. The government doesn't get to compel taxpayers to fund the display of secular religious symbols in violation of the First Amendment, and then demand that we pay for maintaining them as well. They don't get to paint the streets and plant flags to advance their particular brand of gay communism. The Constitution just doesn't work that way. The money was stolen the moment that it was spent on those flags, and so the teenagers in that case were just repaying the favor. But in scenario number two, where the gay bar or some private actor paid for the flags, and they went and ripped the flag down from outside the gay bar or something like that, if that's what happened, well, then at most, the charge should be vandalism or mischief or something inconsequential like that. And the kids should be, they should have pay the $20 back, and that's it. The idea that they should also be hit with obstruction, conspiracy, and prowling charges and hate crime charges, and that their parents should be arrested too, is obviously totally absurd. I mean, we just watched dozens of Democrats all over the country damage Teslas to the tune of $10,000 or more each, and get off with warnings in almost every single case. Tim Walz's own employee was caught on camera going on a vandalism spree, and they didn't do anything to him, much less to his parents. And now they're going to tell us that some $20 flag warrants a massive police response and a dragnet that captures the parents of everybody involved. Now, you hear the term anarcho-tyranny used a lot, but it's hard to think of a better example than this. At the same time, you have to give the city of Atlanta credit for one thing, which is that despite my expectations, they've managed to demonstrate yet another reason why the category of hate crimes should be abolished and never mentioned by anyone ever again. In every case, it's used for fraudulent purposes to punish politically disfavored groups, to prop up hoaxes, or to distract from the people who are actually committing crimes. In this case, the idea of hate crimes is actually being used for all three purposes, amazingly enough. So the city of Atlanta has achieved a trifecta. And that is why the city of Atlanta and everybody else who's pretending to be upset that some teenagers took down the pride flag in the middle of the street are today canceled. That'll do it for the show today and this week. And actually, I'll be on vacation for the next 2 weeks, as has become my custom for the first 2 weeks of July. I'll see you back in a couple of weeks. Have a great 4th of July. God bless America. Godspeed.
A pro-queer Muslim socialist wins big in New York. The Liver King is arrested after threatening Joe Rogan. And NATO calls President Trump daddy. Check it out on The Michael Knowles Show.